and she had a table near the door with a statue of Kuan Yin Pusat on it. And the table went like this, and the statue fell off, and the head came off. Amitabha! And she was so frightened that as a result of knocking the head off Kuan Yin, that she was going to meet with all sorts of disasters, all sorts of problems. That's how terrified she was. Later on, when I was talking to her, she told me that several years before, she had won the President's Prize as Businesswoman of the Year. Each year in Singapore, any woman who has been very successful in business or finance or something like that, they are given some sort of award, and she had won that award. So from this, I could tell clearly she must be a very intelligent, hard-working, sensible woman. And yet, despite that, she thinks that because she's accidentally knocked the head off a statue of Kuan Yin, that terrible things are going to happen to her. So I calmed her down. It took some time because she was really frightened. I calmed her down by talking to her, and then I said, look, I'm a Ang Mo. I don't know, what is Kuan Yin? And she said, Goddess of Mercy. I said, Goddess of Mercy? So she's sort of very merciful, is that correct? Yeah. So, Goddess of Mercy, okay. So we call her the Bodhisattva of compassion. So you think, because of an accident, because of something that you didn't intend to do, that this Bodhisattva is going to punish you. How is that possible? Why would a compassionate being do that to you simply because of an accident? Oh, yeah, okay. And then I said, do you believe in Kuan Yin Pusat? She said, yes, I worship every day. And I said, do you think that that statue is Kuan Yin Pusat? And she said, he never really thought about it. Whatever Kuan Yin is not a piece of porcelain or a piece of wood or a piece of plastic or anything like that. That's not Kuan Yin. It's not even a representation of Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin doesn't look anything. You think Kuan Yin looks like that? This is just a symbol. Now, it would be interesting to be like that, wouldn't it? You could work in a factory and do 50 different things with your hands. Scratch your head, and Kuan Yin doesn't look like this. This is a symbol of Kuan Yin. The Buddha doesn't look like that. God, I hope he doesn't look like that. These are just symbols. So symbols are important, but they are not that thing. So I calmed her down, and then she sort of felt okay. So energy, all this sort of thing, we should be, this is the 21st century. We should look more to science for the answers to these things rather than silly old people.
But when we talk to the people contra to vegetarians, he can give you even 1001 reason that vegetarian is not good.
Right.
But as human as we are, I feel, my opinion, we are in the middle of that. And sometimes we confuse which one is the right and which one is the correct and which one is the wrong. Even in the Buddhism, sometimes when you meet one guru, they said, this is possible. And sometimes when you hear from another guru...
Right, so what's your question?
My question is, where is our position if we are in this situation, and what your advice to us, to me?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have life insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
I have.
So, when you decided to get life insurance, there are lots of life insurance companies. How did you decide on the one that you picked in the end? What did you do? Did you just go, I'll pick this one? Or how did you make your decision to go with that company rather than this company or that company or another company?
Yeah. Of course, I will see my condition first, and maybe we hear from another.
Maybe a friend told you there was a good... Okay. So you asked others sometimes?
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else?
Maybe sometimes maybe we just know that's insurance, so we pick.
Did you get their policies and read them carefully and compare one with another?
Frankly speaking, no.
Okay.
We make a decision.
Do you think that would have been a good idea to do that?
Yes, I think.
Okay, righto. So, this is what I would say. When you're buying a car, when you're deciding whether you're going to have this person as your girlfriend and get married or not, what do? You make an assessment. You try to collect the evidence, you look at the different choices, you think about it carefully, you may ask your friends for their opinion, and you put all those things together, and then you try to make the best decision you can with the available evidence. You do that if you're going to buy a car. You do that if you're going to go on a holiday and you go to a travel agent. You look at the prices, you compare them, and you pick the one that seems to be best for you. Now, you might end up getting the wrong one. It may sometimes happen. But if you do that, you increase your chances of getting the best one. And I would say that if you do that for other things in your life, you should do that with questions about Buddhism or questions about vegetarianism. And in the case of vegetarianism, it may be that they're both right. Maybe some of the things the vegetarians say is a very good point. And sometimes some of the non-vegetarians say is a very good point too. You are an individual. You have to make your own decisions. Examine the evidence, ask questions, look at both sides, and make the best judgment that you can. Now, nowadays, the internet is full of information, including really bad information. But it's up to you. The information is there. If it's an important subject, you should spend time carefully looking at the evidence and then make your decision. Now, in your case, when you got your insurance policy, you didn't even bother to read their information. So I tell you what, I'm selling some things right now and they're really good. Will you buy them from me?
As I said, it depends on my money in my wallet.
Okay, right. Okay. Anything else? There's somebody here, yeah.
Do you think things get better in the Vinaya practice among the monastic right now compared to when you first write or publish the book? And the second, I would like to hear your autocritic regarding the meditation practice. We know there's some revitalization of meditation practice all around the Buddhist countries. A lot of meditation center with their own tradition and methods.
Go on with it, yeah.
So I would like to hear your autocritics on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I wrote in that book, I can't see that there has been very much change, and I wouldn't expect very much change. I think one serious problem in Buddhism, in certain sections of the Sangha, is that they seem to be conducting a war against the modern world. That their idea seems to be that if we live exactly the same as they did at the time of the Buddha, that we will spiritually develop. Now, this is not only an idea that you get in Buddhism. I have heard that some other religions believe that you must dress the way they dressed in Saudi Arabia 1,000 years ago. You must speak the way they spoke then in those days. So this is not an idea unique to Buddhism. But let's just talk about Buddhism. So that seems to be the case. And I think that that's holding Buddhism back. And I don't think it contributes any way to developing spiritually. So in that sense, I don't see any change, which is unfortunate. About what? Well, this is a sort of a curious thing. You've read my book, so you know what I say. Monks have been using money for 2,400 years. I don't know. I know very, very few monks that don't use money. And that has always been the case. So occasionally I meet monks who make a big fuss about not using money, but I notice that they have a rich lady to drive them everywhere by car. They go first class because they've got somebody to buy the ticket for them. They go first class by aeroplane. They live in fabulous mansions. I mean, even here in Indonesia, I've seen some pretty nice hermitages. So they don't actually physically touch the money, but they have an accountant who does it all for them. I know monks, I won't mention any names, who have built very big monasteries in other countries. They've got very serious financial obligations to pay off the building costs and everything. So they travel the world giving talks, mainly to collect money, which they do not touch, but they let all their disciples do that for them. So I think this is a little bit hypocritical. Now, if you're not going to touch money, okay, I got no problems with that, but don't have anything to do with money. If it's simply a matter of touching your hand, I think this is nonsense, quite honestly. Enough of that. And the second question was something about meditation. Oh, you like criticism, do you? Good, right, eh? First thing is, the Buddha did not teach the Noble One-Fold Path. He taught the Noble Eightfold Path, of which one is meditation. Is meditation important? Yes, it's very, very important. Is it the be-all and the end-all of Buddhism? No, it's one of 8 parts. It's probably the most important single part, but there's more to Buddhism than meditation. I notice that some meditation teachers, they're always telling people, you've got to become a sotapanna. Yeah. Which stage are you up to yet, And I meet meditators who have got performance anxiety. Do you know what that is? Do you know what performance anxiety is? That is, people are nervous that they're not progressing. And I've noticed meditators like this. Now look, this is the reality. Please listen to me careful. You are not going to attain enlightenment. Okay? It's not going to happen. You're not going to become a stream winner. You're not going to become a sotapanna or a sakadagami. It's not going to happen. Now, if you want it to happen, divorce your wife, send your kids to your uncle and your auntie, sell your house, get a visa to India, and go and live in a cave in the Himalayas. Then maybe, that's possible. But if you've got a job and a house and a family and work obligations, and you're watching K-pop Korean dramas on the television, okay, you're not going to become enlightened. It's as simple as that. There is a thing which I call the wisdom of the body. And the wisdom of the body is that your body knows what it needs. You don't have to always tell it. So, for example, if you don't have enough salt, you will have a craving for salt. If you don't have enough water in your system, you'll feel thirsty and you'll look around for some liquid to drink. When women get pregnant, they want to eat all sorts of funny things, isn't it? Isn't it? You're not pregnant yet. Okay. They have, what's that called in Indonesia? Idam. Okay. Why does that happen? Because a new life is growing in your body and it needs certain vitamins or minerals, and your body knows what it needs, so it gives you the craving, and then you eat lots of mangoes, or you eat whatever it happens to be. Green tea ice cream or whatever. And people, your husband thinks, my wife's finally gone crazy, she wants to eat all this stuff. But that's what your body knows. Now, you mentioned that your friend is very weak and very ill, but he hasn't died yet. And I would say the reason for that is the body isn't ready yet. When the time comes and one by one the organs shut down and stop functioning, then he will pass away. So I don't think it's anything to do with any magic or strong determination. It's what I would call the wisdom of the body. Anyway, that's what I think. Please think about that. And also, I hope your friend gets better. I hope he or she eventually recovers. But we have to leave that to the doctors, and I would say the wisdom of the body. Okay? Okay? No?
Para dokter sudah tidak sanggup untuk menyembuhkan karena dia sudah sangat lemah sekali, tapi keluarganya juga bingung bagaimana untuk mengatasinya, Bhante.
Okay. Oh, I see. Is the person still conscious?
Masih sadar,
Okay.
masih bisa bicara, masih bisa menjawab, tapi tubuhnya sudah kaku. Sudah kaku, tinggal kulit kembalu tulang, tidak bisa gerak.
Okay.
Cuman kepalanya sama tangannya masih bisa.
Well, I don't think the family needs to be confused, because you can't kill the patient. The patient is still alive. So what you have to do, or what has to be done, is to look after them and maintain their bodily functions and what have you, until the body is ready to let go. I can't see what else you can do. Okay? This is what I think. Sometimes people have told me their old mother or their old father is very sick and they are looking after them at home. And it's quite a strain to have to give them food, and then they go to the toilet in the bed, you have to clean it up, or they get sick and you have to clean up all this. And it's not easy, it's a challenge. But I always think, or I always ask people, just remember that once your mother did that to you. When you were 1 year old and you pooed in your pants, your mother didn't get angry, or maybe she did, but she kept her anger down. And when you put the food in the baby's mouth and the baby goes, it's all out. Your mother and your father looked after you, they cleaned up your mess, they washed you, etc. They did that for you, And now it's your duty, your obligation, now that they can't look after themselves, to do that to them. Is it easy? No, it's not. But this is one way that you can repay the people who have done so much for you. So I would ask your friends to consider that and look after this patient until such time as the body lets go. Okay, anything else? Right.
I'd like to know about your thoughts and opinion about suicidal individuals and how to deal with them.
Suicide and?
Suicidal individuals.
I see, okay.
Thank you.
Why are you interested in that?
A friend I barely knew, a person I chat with online, she or he make threats of suicide all the times, and
okay.
It's really edifying to see her.
It is.
Like that. So I'd like to know how to deal with them and to make them quit out of that.
And do you know why this person feels like they want to commit suicide?
No, not really.
Have you asked them?
It seems that they have a lot of problems at once, but I think that even that a person with that much problem shouldn't resort to suicide.
Okay. People commit suicide for a wide variety of reasons. So sometimes we know about suicide bombers for political reasons. And then sometimes political prisoners go on a hunger strike and they say, I'm not going to eat until this happens or that happens, and they, even to the degree that they will starve themselves to death. Sometimes people commit suicide because they are burdened with so many problems and they don't know how to deal with those problems. They can't take the stress anymore, so they kill themselves. Sometimes people commit suicide because of love. This happens in India sometimes. A boy or a girl of a different religion fall in love. Their parents try to break them up, and so they both kill each other. He kills her and then he kills himself. Or they both jump off a cliff together. So people commit suicide for a wide variety of reasons. Now, sometimes people don't commit suicide, but they threaten suicide. Okay? Mahatma Gandhi was good at this. If you, the British, don't do this, I'll kill myself. And so the British were, no, don't. And so he was pretty good at making this threat. Sometimes adolescent girls do this. And sometimes this is a form of blackmail. They don't really intend to kill themselves. They just tell their mother this in order to manipulate them. That's a very unwise thing to do. In other words, sometimes people threaten suicide in order to manipulate others. Okay? So, if somebody that you know online has threatened many times to kill themselves, it may be that they don't intend to kill themselves. It may be that they want attention. Maybe, for whatever reason, they want people to take notice of them. They want to appear to be different from others. They want people to make a fuss about them, so they keep on threatening to commit suicide. But when somebody does threaten to commit suicide, you should take it seriously. Now, I cannot advise you on your online friend, but if you have a good friend and he or she rings you up and says, I just don't know what to do, I'm going to kill myself, talk to them for as long as you possibly can, because sometimes they might do it. So when somebody intends to kill themselves because they are burdened with so many problems, what they need is somebody to talk to And in almost all cases, if there is somebody there to talk to and to listen to them, they won't do it. So if you're in that position where somebody comes to you and that, the best thing you can do is ask them to come and see you, or to go and visit them, or to keep talking to them on the telephone and try to explain to them that you sympathize with them, that you understand how they feel, but at the same time telling them that the problem with committing suicide because you have a problem is that no problem is serious enough to kill yourself for. So your girlfriend ran away. Now I know people who want to commit suicide because their girlfriend ran away. I know people who want to commit suicide because their girlfriend won't run away. How come only 2 people got that joke? Huh? The most important thing you can do to help is to talk to them and to explain to them that this is not the way to... the problem may get better, or it may not. But if you're dead, it doesn't matter. So there's always a possibility of getting out of the problem. And you need to help them to see that that is the case. A long time ago, a man in Singapore came to me. His son used to come to my Dhamma talks, and he had terrible problems, financial problems, very serious financial problems. And he rang me up and he said he was going to kill himself. And he rang me up to say goodbye. And he was crying the whole time. And I said to him, look, if you're going to kill yourself, do this. Don't kill yourself, kill your wife and children. And he was so shocked by that, then he completely broke down and cried. And when he stopped crying a bit, I said this to him, look, if you want to kill yourself, if you kill yourself, your wife, and particularly your 2 sons, they will never forgive themselves. They will always, for the rest of their life, they will be thinking, if only I'd have done this, if only I'd have done that, I could have stopped my father from killing. They'll blame themselves, and they'll blame themselves forever. You will leave in your family, your wife and your children, such devastation, it would be better to kill them. And then the government will hang you for committing murder. So your problem is solved. Now, of course, I didn't mean that. I wanted to shock him into thinking about what he was doing. When a person commits suicide, it usually devastates their family. They literally don't just kill themselves, they kill their family, particularly their children or the people who love them. It's something you've really got to think about before you do it, and somebody who is desperate often doesn't think about that. What you should do is, when they come to you and they're saying that, listen to them. Listen to what they're saying. Give them a little bit of advice. But more than speaking to them, listen to them. And usually you can talk them out of it. I'll tell you another story. You want another story? Okay, last story. I was in Germany. I was staying in a Buddhist society. And one day I heard the front gate of the temple open, and I saw one man pushing another man into the temple in a wheelchair. I was sitting in the library. And then I heard them come into the building. And then the man in the wheelchair came into the library. He was a big, strong guy, only young, only early 20s, very well built. And he told me his story. He told me that about 1 year before, he and his friends and his girlfriend were driving in a car, and the driver was driving too fast, and there was an accident, the friend was killed, the girlfriend was killed, and his neck was broken. So from his waist down, he would never be able to walk again. And the doctors had told him, if in 12 months, they'd give him some exercises to do, massaging his legs, and the doctors had told him, if in 12 months there is no improvements in his legs, it probably means that he'll never walk again. And then he told me that he used to be a sportsman, and I could see that he had a very good body. He was very active in sports. He enjoyed soccer and things like that. And now, for the rest of his life, he thinks he's going to be confined to a wheelchair. And so he's decided, he told me, he's decided if in 12 months he can't walk again, he's going to kill himself. And then he said, I've gone to a Muslim teacher and asked them what they think. And I've gone to a Christian pastor and asked them what they think about that. He'd gone to all different people, and now he's come to a Buddhist monk to ask me what I think. So then he said to me, what do you think about my decision? If I can't walk in 12 months from now, I'm going to kill myself. And I said, I think that's a good idea. Now, the man who was standing beside him, the man who had pushed him in, was his best friend. They had been school friends together. Then when they got jobs, one went here, one went there. Then when he'd had this accident, the friend came back and has been helping him. A really good friend. So that friend was standing behind the wheelchair. And when I said, I think it's a good idea, you should kill yourself, the friend went, no, don't say that. And I said, yeah, I think that's a good idea, you should kill yourself. And then he was very shocked, because everybody else, the Christians, said, no, don't kill yourself. And this Buddhist monk, Venerable Dhammika has a reputation of being a bit crazy. This Buddhist monk had said, yeah, kill yourself. So he was quite shocked. And then I said, how have you decided to kill yourself? And he said, I've thought of taking sleeping tablets. I said, that's a good idea. I said, can I recommend a good way for you to kill yourself? And the man standing beside him went, and he was very shocked at what I said. I said, look, I can give you some good advice on how to kill yourself. Listen to me. And at that time, I was living in Sri Lanka. I was visiting Germany. And I said to him, look, I live in Sri Lanka. I live in the city of Kandy. And in Kandy, when you go to the big market, one thing you notice is lots of children with polio. Okay? You may get a similar thing here. They walk on, their legs are all thin, and they walk, they can't stand up, they walk on all fours. And they put pieces of rubber from old tires on their knees, and they beg from people. And they usually get lung problems because they're down on the ground and the dust gets in their face and everything. And I said, there's lots of these kids there. In the market in Kandy, there might be 20 or 30 of these kids. You go there every day, they're begging. I said, their life is really rough because there's no social service in Sri Lanka. There's nobody who takes care of them. Often their parents have kicked them out. Their life is really hard. I said, look, how about this? Sell everything you have, your house, your business, your car. Move to Sri Lanka. I'll help you. Get a house near the market and spend the rest of your life looking after these kids because they don't want to kill themselves. They're struggling to survive. Now, I estimate that trying to live in Sri Lanka, going down the street in a wheelchair is going to be pretty difficult. I reckon looking after those kids, because some of them are quite rough, they've been living on the streets for years, I reckon that'll be a really tough job. I estimate that in about 5 years you'll be dead. So how about that? How about you come to Sri Lanka and kill yourself with exhaustion, helping those crippled kids who do not want to kill yourself, who do not want to kill themselves. He was silent. We talked a little bit more and he left. 1 year later, I was back in Germany again. And guess who turned up? The guy in the wheelchair. Only this time, it wasn't his friend who was pushing him, it was his girlfriend. So the doctors have told him that he's not going to walk, but he's got himself a new girlfriend. They invited me to their flat for dinner. The subject of killing himself didn't come up. But I could tell that he decided not to kill himself. That's my suicide story. One last question before we finish, maybe. Okay.
My name is Tanjung. There is a very interesting article called Where There is the Dhamma, There is Solution. So please tell us why the Dhamma can solve every problem. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I haven't read that article.
But there is that article.
Now, I'm not sure that the Dhamma can solve every problem. In fact, I don't believe that all problems can be solved. I can think of lots of problems which do not have a solution. So sometimes we have to live with certain problems. Like, for example, maybe you don't like the colour of your hair. Well, you've just got to live with it. I had a friend once who was very short. He was very self-conscious about being short. He has to live with it. There's no way in the world he can become tall. So sometimes we simply have to endure or learn to live with certain problems. So I'm not sure that the Dhamma has a solution to every problem. But many of the problems that we have to endure are self-created through our ignorance, our impatience, particularly our greed. We often create problems for ourselves which wouldn't be there if it wasn't for us. So those types of problems, I think, certainly can be managed or even solved by living by the Dhamma. I think that is certainly correct. Then there are other types of problems which are not self-created, but they might be able to be fixed with the Dhamma too. So, for example, they have found that mindfulness meditation can actually be quite good for you, for your physical health. Now, they have shown that it can be very good for your psychological health. That makes sense. But there is a connection between the mind and the body. Sometimes the state of the body can affect the mind. Sometimes the state of the mind can affect the body. So sometimes certain states of mind can help cure or heal certain physical complaints. Now those physical complaints may not be caused by you, they may be just bodily sicknesses. And yet some of them, certainly not all, but some of them might be able to be alleviated or improved or sometimes cured with meditation. So there are some problems that are not self-created which can be helped with the Dhamma. That's what I would say. Yeah. Okay. All right then, one more. Definitely last one. Any on this side? No. Huh? No? Okay, that one there.
Namo Buddhaya, Bhante.
I have two questions. One is that it's been told that Bhante was born in Australia, which is with no Buddhist tradition. What inspired Bhante to follow the Buddha's teaching in a relative young age? This is my first question. My second question is about the Buddha's teaching itself, which is the difference between the Buddha's teaching with other religion is the no soul or anatta. Is the concept or no soul. What I'm confused is that if no soul, which is what I'm now and what I'm later second from now, is a different soul. What's the, that confusing with the concept of karma itself, which is what I do today, the good deed that I'm done, who reward for, who take benefit for the good karma that I did now, which is second letter is different soul.
So you're saying that if you're changing all of the time, what you do now, how can the karma affect you? Because in 1 week you'll be a completely different person.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's a good question.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
I hope I've got a good answer for it. Okay, so your first question is, I was born in a country, when I was young, there was almost no Buddhism in Australia. So how did I become a Buddhist? Well, I always had an interest in religion. I used to go to church, and I enjoyed going to church, and I learnt a lot. And much of what I learnt was very good for me. I didn't learn anything bad in church. They taught us to love our enemies and to forgive people who harm us and to help others. All good teachings. But there were some things that I couldn't accept, especially as I got a bit older. I never really figured out the idea of God. I had a problem with that. And I had a problem with the idea that I have to be punished for my sins, but Jesus loved me so much that he was punished for my sins, so I don't have to be punished for them. So some of the ethical ideas, I had no problems with. I thought, and I still think, they are very high and lofty ethical ideas. But some of the theological ideas, I couldn't understand those. So I started looking for something else. One day I found a book on Buddhism, and that made 100% sense to me as soon as I read it. Now, I didn't understand everything, but what I did understand made perfect sense to me. So from that time onwards, I started reading more books about Buddhism, and then I got completely confused. Because I didn't know the difference between Hinayana and Mahayana and this yana and that yana, and then Zen Buddhism and Pure Land. Oh my God, what the hell is all that? So for quite some time, every time I saw a book on Buddhism, I bought it and read it, and it just made me more confused because it seemed to be saying something different from what was in the last book. Now, you probably know when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, you do really stupid things. It's true, isn't it? Girls are not so bad. Guys, and they have ridiculous dreams. They have completely unrealistic goals. Well, that's what I was like. And one of my most ridiculous ideas was, I want to go to Thailand and become a monk. So, why did I do that? Out of adolescent immaturity. I really had no idea what it would be like in a Buddhist monastery. It was a dream I had. Fortunately for me, gradually I got used to it. I saw that there were some things in it which were good, some things in it which were not particularly good, and I found my way, and eventually I had the great good fortune of meeting some highly intelligent people, Kalyana Mitras, spiritual friends, who guided me through the monk's life, very good monks. And so gradually I remained a monk because I could see the value of it. Now, when I was in Australia and reading books about it, it sounded fantastic, but that's not the reality. The reality can be different. And so many young Westerners in those days became monks. After 1 or 2 years, they all left. I survived. And the second question was, if we are changing all of the time, and we do something now, and it will have a karmic result later, if I'm completely different, how is that possible? That's your question, isn't it? Okay. So, when the Buddha said there is no self, anatta, he didn't mean that there is no self. Of course there is a self. What is the self? Well, don't you feel as if you exist? Don't you feel different from her? Don't you feel independent? Don't you have a memory where you can remember yesterday, last month, last year? So let's say you're with your children, and your children asked you about your childhood. So you take out the photograph album and you show them pictures of when you were 6, or when you were a baby, or when you were 8 years old, or something like that. And your kids might look at that picture and say, "Daddy, is that you?" And you say, "Yeah." Are you lying? Of course you're not lying. It is you, but it's not exactly the same. You're much smaller. Your facial features are somewhat different, but they can still recognize your face. And when they see a picture of you as a teenager, then you look a little bit more like how you look today, but not exactly the same. So even though there is this change, there is also continuity. And it is through that continuity that karma operates. Okay? That's what I would say. Is that good enough for you? Huh? I can't see your face. Does that answer your question? Oh.
Yeah, still confusing.
Okay.
Bhante. But I can understand about the difference between no soul and no self.
Yeah. So the English word soul usually means an invisible thing which is the real person. That soul is created by God, it is put in you when you were born, and when you die, your body dies and your soul goes to heaven or to hell. And that soul never changes. So the Buddha denied that. And even in contemporary psychology, they don't believe that. They say that yourself is constructed from the time you're a baby. It's built up by different experiences, and it's changing all of the time. In English, we have a phrase. Sometimes, if somebody is very sick, or they have a very traumatic experience, their friends may look at them and they may say, "He's not himself anymore." Do you have an expression like that in? Okay. Thank you also for your questions. There are quite a lot of interesting and intelligent questions. I don't claim to know everything, but I did my best to explain the Dhamma as I best understand it. I hope it was helpful for you, and I hope it clarifies things for you.